Welcome to the Her Story Circle podcast, the podcast that brings you the extraordinary tales of everyday women who are changing the world. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Every week, we dive into the lives, challenges, and triumphs of women from all four corners of the globe. We're here to inspire, enlighten, and connect, sharing stories that uplift and empower. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and join us as we explore the incredible journeys of women shaping our future. This is Her Story, where every woman's voice matters. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Her Story Circle. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, and share your story with us today.
Hi, everybody. My name is Julie Eshelman, and I am joining in from Virginia in the United States. And so I just want to start with a brief story. Imagine that you are lying in an emergency room bed, feeling relieved that you just saw your baby's heartbeat and that it was strong, and that this episode that brought you to the emergency room was just another unexplained bleeding incident. Then, all of a sudden, the contractions start. The nurses and the doctors are frantically trying to wheel you up to the maternity floor, but you already know that you are about to miscarry your fourth very wanted baby. That was my reality on January 25th, 2024. And it nearly cost me my life. And yet, from that pain came a deep passion within me to ensure that no military family has to experience something like that alone and without the information and the resources to support them. So to back up a little bit, when my husband and I first met and were married, we knew that we wanted to have a family. We didn't realize that that journey was going to take us through 9 years of heartbreak, of struggle, and of uncertainty. We were diagnosed with unexplained infertility, which in and of itself isn't really an answer because we still don't know what is wrong or how we can really help solve that problem. There just hasn't been enough research into reproductive health to really be able to find those answers. And that diagnosis alone also just felt like another hurdle we had to overcome. And during that time, we pursued fertility treatments all out of pocket because here in the United States, with the military fertility treatments like intrauterine insemination and in vitro fertilization are not covered. So we have to pay out of pocket for those. And that's a lot and it's expensive. And we knew that we still needed to do that. So we gave up everything. We got rid of our second car. We stopped going on dates. We stopped going on vacations. We stopped doing anything extra so that we could save for the family that we so desperately wanted. And then we experienced our first fertility treatment procedure, which was an IUI, and it worked. We were so surprised. And then that first miscarriage happened. And it was heartbreaking. We were in the middle of moving, and as a military family, those are very timed processes. You are told when you're moving, You're told how many days you have to drive, and you have to drive, and you have to check in, and you have to do all the things. And so there was no time to stop while we were doing that. And we proceeded to do 2 more IUIs, each of them resulting in a loss. And then COVID happened, and the world shut down right as we were about to do our Hail Mary 4th IUI. I had already started taking the medications and the injections for it. And days before we were going to go in to do the procedure, the world shut down. And I was so frustrated and I was so angry. And then I saw a post on Facebook about this advocacy day that was happening and that it was going to be a virtual event. And I thought, oh, I don't know if that's for me. I don't know if sharing my story, if advocating is, if I can really do that. But I found my 3 seconds of courage and I signed up. And that changed everything for me. And at least in that regards, because I found a voice and I found something deep inside of me that I didn't know existed, that I didn't know could help me channel the pain and the frustration that I was going through into something actionable. And once things kind of settled down and reopened, we were able to pursue IVF. And I continued with that advocacy through that and through the first year of having our daughter. I feel like her birth story is probably its own talk because it involves a tornado, an ICU or a NICU stay for my daughter. And so we could spend a whole day talking about that. But I knew that I didn't want to let any other military families feel alone, feel like they didn't know where to turn to when they were dealing with these profound levels of grief, of uncertainty. And that led me to, through that passion and purpose found through advocacy, led me to also founding a nonprofit organization supporting military and veteran families here in the United States that are struggling to build and grow their families. And so we all know here in the United States, the numbers are 1 in 4 will experience a miscarriage. And so that's a lot of people that are experiencing that, and they're often experiencing that in silence. And then worldwide, we know that infertility impacts 1 in 6. And actually within the military community here in the United States, those rates are actually closer to 74% of people within the U.S. military connected community have been diagnosed with infertility. And so it is such a huge issue here that I knew something needed to be done. And which is why I started the organization Building Military Families Network, so that we can provide that space for people that are experiencing miscarriages and experiencing these challenges of moving while experiencing a miscarriage, which creates this trauma and this experience that is unlike anything else. And it's really hard to talk about with somebody that isn't knowledgeable of the added stressors of military life. And so these support groups that we have for miscarriage and pregnancy loss, infertility, and pregnancy after experiencing pregnancy loss or infertility are so important for our community to be able to come, to feel seen, to feel heard, and to just have that community so that they are not alone. And so for those of you that are here, that are watching, that are listening, I just want every one of you to know that whether you're experiencing pregnancy loss, infertility, or something in between, or some other challenge with family building, that you are not alone in this journey. You do not have to go through these heartbreaking, trying, frustrating situations and life experiences alone. There is a community out there for you. whether you are within the military community here in the United States. There's organizations, and there are organizations all around the world that you can connect with and you can find your voice.
Well, Julie, what a journey you've been on. Absolutely traumatic experiences. So, what was the emotional impact of going through fertility testing alone while your husband was deployed?
Oh, I mean, scary. I don't even think begins to begins to really explain that. There's so much uncertainty of going through those diagnostics tests for infertility. For anybody that doesn't know, a lot of the diagnostics involve like injecting either dye or saline like into your ovaries, and that's not very comfortable. Um, it's also very invasive, it feels like, and to not have somebody there to hold your hand was really
Mm,
hard for me. Even just walking into the clinic for the first time without my husband there, it was definitely hard. Um,
yeah.
but we were going through a deployment, and that also felt really hard, and I knew that I had to do it so that we could move forward with our family building journey.
Mhm. So, how did the experience of your first miscarriage shape your perspective on resilience?
Oh, um, I think it just took it to another level. Like that's it's actually kind of hard for me to put into words, um, because as a military spouse, like I've had to do a lot of really challenging things. Like I had to have a major knee surgery while my husband was deployed alone in a state without any family there to support me. And so I think military life in general has just helped me really dig down and find this inner strength that I didn't know that I had, but also led me to be really resourceful in finding the things and finding the community that I needed. And if I couldn't find it, well, I created it.
Mhm. It's just incredible. Yeah. So, when something is not there, you saw a problem and you created a solution. Now, you call your daughter your IVF miracle. What does that phrase mean to you?
Oh, hope. I think is kind of the first thing that comes to my mind. Grateful. Um, she's everything that my husband and I wanted, and so much more, even when she's protesting, bedtime. Um, but I just hope that someday she understands just how much she was wanted and loved,
Mhm.
um, and understands everything that we did to just make it happen so that she could be a part of our lives.
Yeah, it's just amazing. Now, how did the COVID-19 incident change your journey and lead to your advocacy? COVID did a lot to people, a lot for people, and a lot against people. What was that experience like?
Yeah, I think that's something that, everybody that's listening to this, we all experienced that together. Um, we were like people were connecting in different ways and spending way too much time on social media. I mean, I was totally guilty of that. But
Wow.
that I saw a post, and I don't know that I would have seen that post if it wouldn't have been for the pandemic. Like, I don't know that that advocacy effort here in the States would have been known to me, because it was an in-person event where they all flew into Washington, DC, and that
Yeah.
certainly wasn't something that I would have ever been able to afford. But because of COVID and people having to pivot and create something virtual, it
Mm-hmm.
opened up an opportunity for a lot more people to participate.
Yes.
Um, and in doing that, not only was it therapeutic for me to talk about my journey, it was scary as all heck,
Mm-hmm.
to talk about something so intimate and personal and heartbreaking, but at the same time, it gave me so much hope for
Yeah.
the future, and it really helped me feel like I could do something.
Mm-hmm.
By sharing my very unique experiences as a military spouse and the things that we've gone through in our journey could actually make a difference. And
Yeah.
that just lit something inside of me that nobody's ever going to be able to put out.
Yeah, it certainly started a fire. I can see
Mhm.
that. Now, what role did the 3 seconds of courage play in transforming your life's direction?
Yeah, I mean, I've often thought back to that moment where I clicked register. like I sometimes I don't know what possessed me to do it. But I think it was that courage and that maybe unheard desire that was deep down inside of me. Like I
Yes.
knew deep down inside, somewhere in the back of my mind that maybe I just kept trying to brush off, that I could do something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it just took that 3 seconds to click that button. And that led me down this path that just has completely transformed my life. I never in a million years thought I would refer to myself as an advocate. I never
Yeah.
thought that I would go on to found a nonprofit. That is not the life direction I chose,
Yeah.
or I would have chosen. But it is certainly um, where I'm meant to be.
And that's just incredible what happens when you are on purpose and
Mhm.
everything aligns to take you in a direction you never would have seen otherwise. So, why do you think infertility and pregnancy loss remains such a stigmatized topic? Why are they so stigmatized?
I feel like that is such a loaded question.
Mhm.
um, I think a lot of it is just things that are vulnerable and messy. I feel like as women, we're oftentimes just told to kind of sweep that under the rug. Like, you can't show your emotions. You can't do this. Like, that's not how it's supposed to be. Um, I'm also a little bit of a rule breaker. And so I don't see things that way. I think
Yeah.
being our authentic and true selves, and, whether that's bringing along the good, bad, and the ugly, and
Mhm.
sometimes even uglier, that's part of life. And that transparency is what truly can help other people.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Now, what are the systemic barriers, especially for military families, to make fertility treatment harder to access?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first and most glaring one is that our current insurance coverages through TRICARE don't cover fertility treatments unless there is a serious injury or illness that is connected to the service member's service.
Right.
And even for those that do have a service connected injury or illness, those are often really hard to prove. And so
Right.
that becomes a huge financial barrier. Fertility treatments here in the States, it varies depending on what part of the country you live in. But on
Yes.
average, it's probably about $20,000 just for one round or cycle of IVF. Another challenge or barrier that military families face is we move on average of every 2 to 3 years.
So
And
not in one place.
so we're never someplace long enough.
Yeah.
During our 9-year journey, there was one point where we did 5 moves in 7 years.
Jeez.
With our longest or shortest duty state, like our shortest location, we were only there for 10 months, which is barely even time long enough to
Yes.
establish care with your primary care manager,
Yeah.
let alone get all the referrals you need. And yeah, so that's another huge barrier.
That's incredible. And it's so challenging because you've got a moving target. You're not in one place.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us about the nonprofit that you founded and what inspired it and who does it serve?
Yeah. So I kept telling myself I wasn't going to start a nonprofit. Like, I'm going to let somebody else do that. Like that, like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. Um, but nobody was stepping up to the plate to serve our military and veteran families that were struggling with these family building issues.
Yes.
And providing that support, providing the education, and connecting these families to the resources that existed, and just being that kind of go-to hub. And so I finally said enough was enough.
Mm.
I pulled on my big girl panties and said, okay, I'm going to do this. And I did. And so a little over 2 years ago, I founded Building Military Families Network, a nonprofit serving our military and veteran connected community and families through our support groups, our education center, and our resource hub.
Wow. And now you're helping so many other families who would otherwise be struggling to get this support and help. So, how do you balance the personal pain of your story with the public role of an advocate?
Some days I do it really well, and some days I don't. Sometimes the stories are a lot harder to tell, um, especially when I'm in the thick of things.
Yeah.
But I know that it's so much bigger than myself. I'm the advocacy work that I do is not going to help my husband and I.
Yeah.
It's so that we can help the next generation, not
Yeah.
have to have the same struggles and mountains to climb that we did.
Yeah. Yeah, that is so good. Now, what do you say to women who feel alone or ashamed in their journey?
You're not alone.
Mhm.
This, whether you're dealing with infertility, pregnancy loss, maybe you're, exploring the ideas of surrogacy or adoption, you're not alone. It doesn't matter what you think you may have done to cause
Right.
this. I can tell you, you didn't do anything. And you don't have to sit in silence, because there are women to your left and to your right that have experienced one or both of these
Yeah.
topics, because it is far more common. And
Mm,
there is.
mm.
I always like to say that my infertility and pregnancy lost friends are the family that I never knew I needed.
Yeah.
And we're all a part of this awful club, but it's got the best members, because they are truly the family that got me through some of the darkest moments.
Right. Yeah, that's just incredible. Absolutely incredible. So, if you could change one policy tomorrow, what would that be and why?
Oh, I mean, having infertility coverage, like for infertility treatments for everybody,
Mhm.
not just our military community, but for everybody here in the States.
Yeah.
because I think everybody should have the opportunity to build and grow the family that they want
Right.
without having to risk going into debt, or
Mhm.
even making risky health decisions because they're concerned about the finances.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that would definitely be the first the first thing I would change.
Man, so many issues to take into consideration. So, how do you take care of your own mental health and emotional health while leading others? It's got to be challenging.
I'm probably not the best person to ask that question to. I think having people that you can talk to, um,
Yeah.
whether that, is a professional, or you're looking into like a peer support group, or just a friend that you can confide in or
Yeah.
talk to, I think is the best way to really help your own mental health, as a leader, as an advocate, as somebody just experiencing these heartbreaking challenges,
Mm,
but also making sure that you're taking time every day to do something for yourself,
yeah.
whether
That's
it's,
true.
a quiet time in the morning,
Mhm.
a walk, um, or, for me, I just need 30 minutes playing a video game or watching television to just disconnect and
Yeah.
give my
Yeah.
mind a break.
Yeah. Self care is everything.
Mhm.
And women just need to be reminded of that more often.
'Cause you can't if you're not taking care of yourself, you
You
can't
can't
take
take care of
care of,
anyone else.
right?
Yeah.
It's like the old, when you're on the airplane, put your oxygen mask on yourself first before helping others. I feel like as women, we sometimes forget to do that for ourselves.
Mm. So, what legacy do you hope your daughter sees in the work that you're doing?
That your voice is powerful,
Mm.
and that sometimes standing up to the status quo is needed,
Yeah.
to fight change, and I think that the value in that in those personal stories,
Mhm.
so that, whatever she faces in her life, and hopefully it's nowhere near as heartbreaking as the things that, her father and I have experienced.
Gone through.
But
Yeah.
that final reminder that no matter what she's going through, somebody out there is going through something very similar,
Mhm. Yeah.
regardless of whatever the issues are.
My last two questions are a bit of a thought experiment. The first one, I'm going to teleport you back to the past, to the younger you, the young woman who was in the middle of her infertility journey. Just in case there is someone who's listening to us right now, if you could go back and give yourself three nuggets of wisdom based on what life has taught you up until this point, what would those three nuggets of wisdom be?
Open up sooner.
Mhm.
I feel like we, kept our infertility and loss struggles hidden for
Okay.
too long, um, because in doing so, I isolated myself when I didn't need to isolate, because
Mhm.
I had
Mhm.
people in my network and in my circles that were experiencing those things too. And
Yes.
had I had the courage to voice it, I'm sure I would have heard the me toos.
Yeah, that's so true. Wow. Wow.
Yeah. Two more things. Let's let me think. I think it's really just, you can find community, and you can find, I don't really know how to say it other than like you're not alone. It's just like that is like the one thing, like if I could tell my younger self, yeah, open it up, because when you open up, as vulnerable and as hard as that is, there's so much power that and strength, and there's so much that comes out of that vulnerability. I found that I wasn't alone. I found my community, and along the way, I found my purpose.
That is just beautiful. Last question is futuristic, and I'm going to teleport you into the future this time. And we are going to go and sit with a 90-year-old you. And she is sitting in her rocking chair, surrounded by her children, her grandchildren, whoever's with you at the end. If you could go and meet this wise woman who has led you up until this point and is helping has helped hundreds of women through her advocacy work, what will you say to her when you finally meet her?
I mean, I would have a million questions. How do we get to the end, like the end goal? Oh man, what would I want to ask her? That is, I mean, the first thing that comes into my mind is, was it worth it? But I already know that answer. Like, that's 1,000 times yes. And so I'm trying to come up with something different, and that is challenging. I can't come up with anything better than was it worth it, but I already know that answer. And so, I would probably just want to hear the biggest difference she was able to make in somebody's life.
Yeah.
On
That's
that
awesome.
personal level.
That is awesome. Well, listen, thank you so much for coming online and sharing your story with us today. It's so inspiring knowing that women can get that support and not feel alone as they go through this journey. It's challenging enough, struggling on your own, but creating community, I think, is everything. And sharing these stories to make them mainstream. What you're doing takes a lot of courage, a lot of effort, but women need to hear these stories. So thank you for sharing your story with us today.
No, it was an honor, and thank you so much for having me on to be able to share a little piece of my story.
It's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you to everybody who tuned in today. The Her Story Circle is not just a podcast. We're a social impact movement that brings you the stories and voices of women from all over the world. We share these stories to uplift you, to inspire you, to energize you, but most importantly, to help take you from where you are now to where you're trying to go. So tune in again tomorrow when I interview yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And bye for now. Thanks again, Julie.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into the Her Story Circle podcast. I hope today's story has inspired you to believe in the power of our stories and the difference you can make in the world when you use your voice. I'm Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a rich tapestry of diverse perspectives. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these stories with more listeners. Follow us on social media by looking for the Her Story Circle podcast for more updates. And join us tomorrow for another episode filled with courage, resilience, and empowerment. Remember, your story matters, and together we're building a stronger, more inclusive world. Until next time, keep making her story.